Hi, Dan.
Hi, Kate.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing today?
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I've been here trying to play old songs with you all day.
That's true. What about before that?
Before that, I have been doing not much. I've been doing some writing with you on a separate occasion.
This is very true. We've kind of had a little project on the side, just writing some songs with some friends called Glumflower, if you fancy checking it out.
Yeah. With 2 R's at the end.
Yeah, it is on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just a ball of fun.
It's a ball of fun.
It's a ball of fun.
I'm having fun.
With our friend Portia, who is undoubtedly one of the best singers and the best looking people, I think, that we have in our lives. So she's kind of set for stardom, really. And we're just on our coattails.
We're just riding on the collar.
Speaking of coattails.
Borrowed.
Does that make any sense?
No.
Not at all.
Speaking of radiators, borrowed.
Anyway, so Borrowed.
Let's get into it. Let's get in the nitty gritty.
Yeah, okay.
What is Borrowed about? Tell me, make me feel what the song is about.
What is this?
I don't know.
Okay, Borrowed. It's essentially about the kind. I mean, as classic as I can get with my songwriting and who I am. It's kind of bleak, but then I think, what's the main thing that Buddhists say? Life is suffering, and it's.
And who are we to fight the Buddhists?
So the bottom line is essentially like we're all going to die. We are all going to die. Like,
so borrow everything you can find and never give it back.
Literally everything in your life is borrowed. Like all your money, your family, your house, everything. And yes, that sounds bleak as fuck, and it's actually really depressing. But when I had the realization that like you cannot take anything with you when you go, and like even relationships, you want to keep them, like especially as this whole album has kind of like preluded to, is that the right word? Alluded to my anxious attachment style. It's been a big learning curve for me to realize that even the things that I love the most will still be taken away no matter how much I love them. So yeah, hard to learn that lesson, but actually really liberating once you do learn it, because you're like, okay, well, I can just enjoy it for the moment. And if I think about, I'm like borrowing my dog for 10, 11 years, or I'm borrowing a human and having a relationship with them, but someday they might need to go on a different journey. It just feels a bit more enjoyable, I guess. You're not completely just drowning in sadness all the time that they're going to be taken away.
Yeah.
I mean, you still are, because that is life and that is being a human. But I think to kind of remind yourself of that as much as possible in a not depressing, kill yourself kind of way.
In a sort of way that makes you appreciate the moments much more, because they are sort of temporary and fleeting.
Yeah.
And when we say temporary, I don't mean like it's like the dog's going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Better not, Wiggy.
You better fucking not, mate. High Christ.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's I was very attached to it the second you played it. Around the time we wrote the album, you were sending like a lot of songs through, and there were some real gems in there, and there was some which we were both a bit like, it could be cool, but there's more in there. And then Borrowed was one I instantly fell in love with, and you played it so many different times. You sent me like 4 demos. You're like, it could be like this, or it could be like this, and then there would be like, one be on a guitar, and one's on like a Rhodes, and one's on a piano, and like I just remember thinking like, a good song is one that can transfer to different instruments. And then we got together. We went back to Barnstable. It wasn't Barnstable. It was opposite way, Dunstan Farm in Doncaster,
right,
where we wrote most of Postcards. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time together we tinkered with it. And when I say tinkered, I mean you'd written the full song, but we kind of jammed it and kind of got a sense and a vibe of it. And I remember just both of us being like pretty buzzed on music and just like playing it over and over again. You were on the piano, I put like a drum beat on, I was playing some like mad electric guitar that definitely never made it onto the actual track. But I think songwriting's good like that. You can sort of, you're not playing the version it's going to be recorded to, you're feeling the song as it feels good, and that sometimes is very different to what gets put down.
I think that's important as well for the creative process, is to kind of like find what it means to you as like 2 band members, 2 best friends, 2 people playing it together, to find that bit where it's like you can look at each other and be like, oh, yes, this feels amazing, this feels good. And especially with like songs that maybe come fully fleshed or like mostly fleshed, it takes time for it to become a Meadowlark thing. So it means jamming it over and over again. But that's almost like the most fun bit, because then we find it together and we're like, oh my God, that is how it should sound and be.
Yeah, totally. I feel like there's an obsession that happens in songwriting, and that's when you know you've got something. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but something you feel.
Yes.
Because a song is only good if you feel what it means to play it and what it means to sing it and to resonate those lyrics. And it was a beautiful experience. And
I kind of love that about songwriting in general, because it ties back into the borrowing things. Like you very much kind of like get that creative process. You get to enjoy that once in a lifetime, genuinely once in a lifetime experience of writing that song. And you're borrowing it because eventually you're going to give it back away to the world, and then they can do what they want with it. But like that creative process is it's a very small amount of time in the grand scheme of things, and it only happens once for one song. Do you know what I mean? So there's something really cool about that. Yeah, borrowing music.
I mean, I don't have a child, but I imagine, you know, when parents talk about they want the baby back, you know, it's sometimes you want that initial version. It can't exist again. Even if we and you got to the piano now and I played the guitar and we played it exactly as we played it that first day we wrote it, it would never feel like it did in that moment. The freshness of it, the kind of newness. There's one thing I love about songwriting is that it doesn't last very long, that feeling. And as soon as you record it a couple times or you start playing it more, that feeling goes away and it becomes the song that everyone else is going to have. But when you make it, it's so pure for so short amount of time. And I can indulge in that forever. It's like my favorite part of being a musician.
100%. And it's also so tied into like the people who we were back then. Like it's not going to feel the same now also, because we've grown a bit and had different life experiences, whereas for back then it was clearly very special for that moment and those people specifically in those times, you know? Yeah,
totally. And then I think so then we took it into the recording process. I remember, because we jammed it so aggressively when we first wrote it, and it would be fun to actually find that demo and play a bit of it on Instagram at some point, just because it was quite a gnarly, messy, just scrappy. I was just like hammering the piano.
Mad.
I remember thinking like, what can this be when it gets recorded properly? And I remember you started playing it on the piano. So for the recording process, Pete, our producer, was like, I'm going to use half the fee you're giving me to buy a piano, and it's going to be like the Meadowlark piano. I'm going to buy it for the studio. I've wanted one for a long time. I'm going to use this as an excuse. And so he took you piano shopping, right?
He did.
I mean, it's not linked to this song specifically, but the piano does come into that later. But he took you piano shopping, and you chose the upright piano that's now in Middle Farm Studios that has been on amazing records. I think it's on the Fizz record that's coming out soon. They've put a couple of songs out. I'm pretty sure I know that Dodie played it a lot. She was in after us. All has got it on her new songs. I mean, God knows who else has been in there and played that piano.
It's a beautiful piano.
It's an amazing piano. And it was quite inspiring to have that to gravitate towards. And it instantly, with the felt on it, was like a really fun thing to gravitate towards. And you playing that version, we were all just like, I don't think this needs anything else with it. And so the first iteration of Borrowed Recorded was me, you and Pete at the exact same time playing the piano. And it was such a beautiful version. I'm sure it maybe still exists somewhere. And it was messy and rushed because we weren't playing to a click, I don't think. It was just like completely on our own terms, loads of counter rhythms and just mentalness on the piano. But there was a real sense of camaraderie together when we played that. I think that informed what the final song became. We all lived with it for a while and decided, actually, you know, I wanted the drums back on there. I think I wanted it to become this bigger song. And so we sort of like scrapped it and started again. But the essence of that, you know, Pete playing the counter rhythms in the high part and you playing it all and me playing those weird little mid notes. And it was such a joyous experience to create that song. And it only got more interesting when we put Rick on the drums and then Pete took Rick's drumming and chopped it all up and it became this breakbeaty, very Middle Farm sounding drum song and really represented like some of the essence of our original EP 100%. That we, you know, recorded at Middle Farm 10 years ago, and those sounds and that feeling of like big and small, you know, you're like, and it gave me an opportunity to sing loud as well, which is really fun. So we have this delicate piano and this delicate voice, and then we all kind of grow with it, and the drums get bigger and I get bigger, and even you, like, there's that dub you did with the radio mic.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember you had like a weird old, like, I don't know what you'd call it.
I honestly
walkie-talkie kind of thing, like a frequency. I don't know what I'm trying to guess. I don't know. But you started doing the overdubs for that, and it just became this really cool song, and it's so weird how it's very different to the rest of the album, but it's somehow sits in between it. Like it doesn't jump out at me as something that it feels odd and alien.
No, it was so cool. And going back to us three playing the piano exactly the same time, like it was so special because you knew, especially recording on tape as well, you knew there were only so many tries of this that you were going to get. And we didn't have like a crazy amount of time left by that point. So
I think
we were
that was quite near the end of one of the weeks, wasn't it? I think I feel like we were not rushing, but we were like,
we wanted to get it down.
Yeah, I think we wanted the whole record done in that first week in some version to live with it and come back and then.
Yeah. And Pete's kind of good at being like, kind of putting the pressure on lightly to just be like, you know, like how we've spoken about before, to not care as much, be like, this is how we're playing it, this is beautiful, we don't need to be crazy about it. So we kind of knew that we only had one take left, and that the nerves but also the adrenaline and pressure of being like, oh my god, this is the take and everyone has to get it right at the same time. No one can fuck up, everyone's got to be on time perfectly, because with that much piano and those many rhythms going, if you're not like spot on time, like you're fucking the whole thing up basically. So I just remember, we do have a video of it that we'll share on Instagram at some point, but you know, when that was finally finished, we all just took like a huge deep breath, being like, oh my god.
I feel like there was like shouting and like we like whooped, like woo,
like oh my god, we did it.
It was crazy. It was a really fun, I mean, out of all of our studio experiences, I don't remember that one being at all painful, because the studio can be painful, I think, is not just because you're taking your songs in and watching someone else put their mark on them, and sometimes it's not how your brain's thought about it, or sometimes it's just the demo, you're so attached to it you can never really get back to that again, because but Borrowed was a really fun one to watch it evolve, and it might possibly be my favorite song off the record, but then that changes every time we put a song
it's
out.
definitely up there. I'd say it's my top 3 for sure. And the video we filmed literally in the room over there. I
mean, no, obviously, if you're listening to this, you won't know. We're pointing to the room next door.
We filmed in my bedroom, and Dan, you're so amazing at this kind of stuff, because you're like, I think we'll figure something out. Like, I'm sure, and I'm like, I never not trust you, because I know whatever you're gonna do is gonna be brilliant.
Thank you.
But even I was like, what can we fucking do in my bedroom? Like, what can we actually do?
Yeah, it was simple, but I felt like it's difficult.
It's perfect. Yeah. It's so good.
It's tricky with a song like Borrowed, because there's so much going on. You almost can't match that. You should let the song kind of do what it's doing and just kind of have something that it's more of a mood piece, I think, and I think it does kind of capture some of that kind of frenetic, frantic, cutting energy. Originally I was going to do it so that every single shot would cut on the arpeggiated piano, so the dum 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 dum. I tied it up, and I can't remember, it was like 200 or 400 cuts, and I started doing it, and I probably got maybe up to the last chorus like, as I was, and you have to manually you couldn't do one and copy and paste, because even though we did that version eventually to a click, naturally there's a bit of push and pull with the notes, and so it wasn't quite bang on, so you have to listen to every note. God. So I'm pressing the cursor one frame at a time to find every arpeggiated piano, cutting the shot, and then I couldn't watch it till I'd done enough of it to see it, and I got to that last chorus, probably took about 4 hours, maybe like an hour. And then I pressed play, and I was like, that's so bad.
Really? It just didn't work?
It was just like chaos. It looked like the computer was going to blow up.
Really?
It was just glitchy and like, but not in a cool way. It was actually really annoying and difficult to watch. And I was like, oh my God, like what an ordeal to get to that point. And then I had to just go back and sort of like, I didn't undo the whole thing, but just drag shots back out to give it more space to breathe a bit more. And then what it ended up being was a bit more like random, and I think that kind of works better, but it was a painful learning experience.
I can only imagine how tedious that was.
Oh my God, it was something else. But I don't know, it's something fun. It is, I think I do complain a lot about doing simplified videos sometimes, but actually there is some interesting thing about having a ceiling. In this instance, it was like, okay, you've got a room and one shot, and you've got a couple of toys to put in front of the camera, like some lenses. Like, what can you do? And I think it's a good exercise to test that sometimes and think like, and that was one, that's why I drew back on it, or came back on it, because it was too much with all the cutting. So actually simplifying it even more, going back to just you sat in the chair. It
was really, really, really cool. I feel like it's good to do that with songwriting too. Like, you can only use these 3 chords or stuff like that. When you kind of limit yourself enough, it really like forces you to be more creative in a way.
I've always really loved that. I think when we first did our EP Jewel with Ant West of Oh Wonder fame, we did it in Josie's like outhouse in the back of her parents' place, and I remember Ant saying, "Let's just use what's in the room." So if you want a drum beat, hit a book or hit a desk, or like, you know, it's like if it's in the room, use it, and if it's not, then don't stress about it. Like, and there was something really liberating about like when you listen to a song, you're like, it needs something, and rather than just jumping into like Contact and being like skipping through 1,000 synths and getting frustrated, you're looking around the room at tangible things, tactile nature. And I think from that experience, that really changed the way I saw production. I think I was like, oh, wait a minute, like it doesn't all need to be in the computer. And actually, we went in postcards. We let JJ, our producer, kind of steer us more in the computer route. And again, it was a good exercise of being like, okay, that's what happens if you do that. And I think the difference between what the album sounds like and what the EP sounds like is quite different.
Yeah. I think we've got a nice mix on this album of like as much natural stuff as possible, and then Pete has, wherever needed or necessary, or to like make it sound better, he's gone in and like chopped things up and made things better. And I think we finally found our feet. We found a bit of a mix of both, which is where we land, I think. Definitely.
You're right, it does sound very natural. And even something like Borrowed, to me, even with a lot of processing, like very compressed drums and chopped up drums, and it still has this element of like, I can hear us playing it.
Yeah, for
sure. And I think that's really wonderful to have on the track.
I do love Borrowed.
It's a fave.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well done, everyone.
Yeah, well done.
Till next time.
Till the next one.
Bye.
Bye.